Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga says government will invest in training women in the aviation sector. Chikunga says while there's some progress, more still needs to be done to increase the number of female pilots. The minister was speaking at the National Aviation Gender Summit in Ekurhuleni. Newzroom Afrika's Ahmed Kajee was there and filed this report.
African Civil Aviation Authority says more can be done by role players in the aviation sector to include and empower women. This was said at the National Aviation Gender Summit hosted by the Aviation Authority in Kempton Park, Ekurhuleni. The gathering focused on topics including, but not limited to, growth and transformation in the sector for women. Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga says it's encouraging that there are more women pilots in the sector, but more can be done.
It gives us time to take stock of what is happening in terms of gender equity in the aviation sector. We come from very low figures or statistics when it comes to these areas. Maybe that at least today in 2023, even if it's not any figure that makes us happy, but we're now talking about 13% of pilots in South Africa, women pilots. We come from 2%, we come from less than 2%. In 2012, I think we're around 4%. And that today we're at 13%. It shows, even if it is at a snail pace, but at least some growth.
South Africa isn't the only country facing gender disparities in the aviation sector. During an international aviation summit held in July, industry stakeholders agreed that more needs to be done across the globe to empower women. With the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals aiming to have 50% of women representation in 50% of all sectors globally, Director of the South African Civil Aviation Authority, Poppy Khoza, reflected on where they stand.
I'm very happy to see that the South African Civil Aviation Authority has indeed, managed to reach that milestone where we have 50% of the staff complement being women and 50% of our executives being women. And we believe that if we could do it as a regulatory authority, any other organization within the aviation sector can do it. And one of the calls that we are making to the captains of the industry, to the industry at large, is that they must implement, those policies. Because one thing that South Africa is not short of is legislation which is pro-women.
This was further supported and reiterated by the minister, making reference to the state-owned entities in South Africa's aviation sector.
I'm happy that in the aviation sector here in South Africa, the 3 state-owned companies that we have in the aviation sector reporting to the Department of Transport, 3 of them are led by women CEO, Ms. Poppy Khoza in Saka, A10 SA Traffic Navigation Services led by Ms. Mdawe, and AXA led by Ms. Mpumi Mpofu. And this actually says that we're trying to transform the aviation sector.
Khoza called on the government and industry stakeholders, including airlines and technical companies, to create programs that empower women. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Ahmed Kajee in Kempton Park.